Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
For some reason, I really love spooky stories about people working night shifts in gas stations, diners, or offices, etc. at night.
Worked as a security guard at an inn. Eastern Europe, middle of nowhere. Night shift, all rooms empty, closed for the night. No one but me. Step out for a smoke. Clear sky, bright full moon. Suddenly someone is screaming like their legs are being ripped off. Grab a shovel and flashlight and walk in the direction of screaming. Screams continue. WTF. Find a dude near a ditch, laying in the mud, face all bloody. He suddenly gets up all cool like, oh, he's just a drunk going from town nearby to his house that's just over the hill. Fell on his face and broke his nose. Oh, okay, that's cool. Seeing as he can't walk because he's too drunk, I drive him home in my E30. Before that, lay some old blankets on the seat so he doesn't dirty my interior. Only a 5-minute drive, so it's cool. Get back, check if no one has broken in. It's cool. Wonder how the hell did he get this far being that drunk? Next day, see his bicycle in the ditch. Oh.
3 years ago, I lived in a small town for a couple of months before moving to my current residence, and I made a living working at a local 24-hour convenience store. The manager was an obnoxious fat bastard who would always find a way to complain about everything. The place was, hands down, a wreck. Lights would often blink and some of the walls were stained by mold. I don't know how he had managed to avoid a lawsuit. The job paid well, though, so I didn't stick my nose into it. I used to work overnight almost every week and rarely had to attend to any customers, so I would often just sit at the counter and read a book. The store was really quiet and lonely during the night, which I loved. Nothing sort of relevant happened until the very last week. Around 4 a.m., be chilling on the counter with a book and a hot cup of coffee. A guy in a long brown coat comes in. He's in his mid-40s, really shady looking, with messy hair. I'm already used to the sight of this type of individual, so I don't give it much thought. "Good night, sir." He just nods and heads to the aisle on the left, towards the fridge, which is blocked from view by the shelves. I go back to reading. I hear him open the fridge door and fumble around. I suppose he must be in some dire need of frozen peas. He doesn't come back after 5 minutes, so I decide to take a look. He's not there, and the fridge door is half open, blocked by a milk jug. I ran back to the counter. He's not there either. I have only been away for 30 seconds. He could have rushed out from the other side of the store, but I would have surely heard the steps in the door opening and closing. I checked the whole store, even the toilet and the locker room. He really is gone. I go back to the freezer. Some of the packages and bags have been tossed around, but he didn't steal anything, apparently. Upon closer inspection, I notice there are several footprints in the thin layer of frost at the bottom. That son of a bitch got inside the freezer and walked on it. For a moment, I think about calling the police, but I realize I don't have anything to report about other than a guy tossing things around and disappearing. I tried to contact the manager, but he doesn't answer the phone. I tell him about it as soon as he comes through the door during the morning. His face sort of twitches in disgust and tells me to clean it up before I leave and then forget about it. He also warns me not to tell anybody lest he loses any customers. I didn't inquire any further and nothing remarkable happened afterwards. I quit the job a week later, before moving out of town. I think the guy was just a loony who was looking for some item of frozen food, made up his mind, and somehow managed to sneak out without me noticing.
Right now, I work at a truck rental place. A guy died in the hitch bay, committed self-termination. We often are here alone for the day, and close alone. Be me. 3 p.m. at work on a cloudless day. Outside is perfect weather. Only responsibility for me is to clean trucks that come back, dispatch them out, and check out people for store items. Dead as shit. Start reading my book, finish a chapter when I hear a loud bang from the back. I thought to myself, okay, it's probably just a box that fell. Continue reading. Hear what sounds like whispering and light walking coming from the back. Okay, sure. GIF. Try to ignore it as I feel someone watching me from far away. Look to the front and see the signs twisting and turning like there is a wind. There is no wind. Get up and go fill someone's propane. Come back and the feeling is gone. So it's just stuff like that. I'm there right now. We close in an hour. But all day today it was little stuff like that. I used to work at a yogurt place that had some screwed up happen late at night. I would be there till midnight and almost constantly see someone standing in the doorway like they were waiting for me.
Worked late night at a grocery store in the 90s. This is when they used to staff departments 24/7. I worked in the electronics section. A short, dirty ginger guy with squinty eyes and thick glasses would always come in sometime around 12 to 2 and play the demo consoles. He smelled like a wet dog all the time, just some weirdo from a trailer park. He was never rude or disruptive, so I thought, screw it. His life's shit. Why not let him play some video games? He'd play for like an hour or so, never talk. Always left when I told him time was up. One night he comes in covered head to toe in dirt. He looked like he'd been buried alive. It was in his hair, glasses, everything. Not okay with this. Dude, you can't come in here like this, you gotta go. Okay. The most okay face I've ever seen. Walk him to the door, be firm with him but not an asshole. Just tell him to go, get cleaned up and he can come back then. Don't see him for weeks. Somebody finds his body curled up in a far back area of the backroom storage behind a bunch of the gardening stuff from summer. He had been living in the storage area of our grocery store for a year or longer. Died of a heart attack in his sleep. Still in the same clothes, still covered in the dirt. I was probably the last person he ever talked to. Not paranormal, but still bothers me. Sometimes I still think of him.
I work in a bar for a hotel in a very small country town. The town itself is kind of creepy, but I'll probably post more about it in a thread. Work Monday and Tuesday nights in a bar. Very quiet on those days. I always pack up early because there is nothing else to do. Turning off the gas for the beer kegs is the last thing I always do. Bar is in the shape of an L, and the gas is on the end of it. One night I had my bag and phone in hand, and walked across the bar to where the gas was. Lights are off. Start walking back, get to the bend in the bar and phone rings. Phone is at the bend, go to answer it and it stops. Weird. Call up to management asking if they just called down to talk to me. No anon. Why do you ask? Ask if they heard the phone ring. Seeing as it's a connected phone, if someone from outside the hotel calls, it rings to all phones. Sorry, Anon. I don't know what you're talking about. Someone in the pub would have to have called my department. Kinda creep because the only other places besides management that can call is the drive-thru that had noon in it, or the kitchen that had been shut for 2 hours. Think nothing of it. Go about my other shifts. Working the Tuesday shift, same thing happened. Walking back from turning the gas off, reach the bend in the bar and the phone rings. Went to grab it and it stops. This has happened every shift now. Had some other stuff happen, but that's the most consistent thing.
I worked at a convenience store overnight for about a year. Things hit the fan one night, I'll greentext it. Working night shift, you know this part. Pizza place next door to us, about 1 a.m. The alarms start going off over there signaling a break-in. Cops show up, all doors are still locked, no sign at all of a break-in. Pizza boxes everywhere, chairs and tables thrown about, cans of soda all over the place. Looks like a tornado tore through the place. Nothing comes of it. Nothing cops can do. Fast forward a couple hours, sitting behind the counter when an extremely uneasy feeling washes over me. Like the oxygen and heat in the room have been depleted and gravity has been turned up. A cardboard cutout display stand flies across the place like it had been hurled like a javelin. From stationary to across the store within a second. Jesus Christ, I'm stuck here. Muster up the courage to clean up the mess. As I'm doing so, the door to the back room slams. It's a metal fire door and slammed hard enough to rattle the floor. Okay, screw this, I'm out. Run outside under the guise of a smoke break. Smoking out there for about 2 hours, dead quiet, not a soul around. Hear footsteps directly in front of me out of nowhere, like 5 or 6 feet from me. Shuffles closer. I'm backed against a wall at this point. A breath right in front of my face. I hear a single drawn-out, raspy breath, like a deep guttural sigh full of mucus. In tears, everything is ice cold. I can't feel my arms or legs. Whatever is in front of me paused for about 30 or so seconds after that noise. Can still feel it there, oppressive, and then poof, nothing. Just as suddenly as this thing was there, it was gone. 1 second, I'm about to die, crushing weight on my chest. Ears are ringing from the blood pressure and panic. The next second, there's nothing. Like the snap of a finger, I can breathe again. Take what feels like 30 minutes to catch my breath and comprehend what just happened. Finally convinced myself to go back inside. Round the corner, open the door, met with disaster. Chocolate bars, drinks, cigarettes, lotto tickets everywhere. Another tornado. It's about 5 a.m. at this point. There's no one I can call, nothing I can do. Clean up the mess as fast as possible like a good waji and wait for daylight. Sitting in silence for the remaining shift after that, processing things, trying to get a grip. Talk to the boss about it in the morning when he comes in. Muslim guy, very faithful, very serious about this kind of thing. He believes me, tells me he's going to say some prayers for me. Ask him to check the cameras, we both want to see this. Nothing. Cameras for our place and the pizza place cut out completely right before the pizza place alarm went off, 12:56 a.m. What the hell, man? And that's it. It fizzled out. Nothing ever happened there again. It was a complete anomaly. No explanation, nothing. Like a demon manifested in this particular spot just to wreak havoc for a night, and dipped. Left us all, especially me, freaked out and extremely puzzled. Also, please pardon me if my green texting was bad. It's my first time green texting and writing out my experience.
To preempt my little green text, I'm a long-haul trucker. Been at it for years, and seen and heard just about all the things you can think of. Driving across the states is full of weirdness, and it changes you. I've pretty much become dependent on caffeine pills, cigarettes, and whiskey. Be me, about 6 years ago. I've been driving for a while now. Talk to more seasoned truckers about the road. Hear stories of travelers, figures, cars, animals that seem to appear over and over again on long hauls. Always the cliché black dog. But there are others. One old-timer, still driving his original late 70s Mack truck, claims he sees an old F-100 in every state, always going the other way. Always ways before a storm arrives. I never thought much of it. Just something guys come up with to pass the time, right? On a particularly long drive across 20 in Texas. Still 300 miles from Abilene, I see a figure out in the scrub. It's like a shadow, watching from the side of the road, cloaked from head to toe, no discernible features. 10 miles further down the highway, I come across a wreck. Stop and find a couple of kids dead in the front seat. Cops said they were likely drunk, ran off the road and died. I shook it off and kept going. It got harder the next few times it happened. Always that shrouded figure. Always a wreck with no survivors. I've seen it probably 3 dozen times now. The younger truckers look at me like I'm the crazy one now. Kind of funny how that comes to pass.
I have been working at McDonald's for just over a year now. Our store has 2 floors, and it also has another floor which is quite high up. It's mostly full of old paperwork and broken furniture and things like that. There's this cupboard that's been locked forever. Not even our current store manager has been in there. Sometimes after shifts we'll go up there because it's kind of comfy and spooky, so me and a few others went up. See the cupboard. Let's go in. The cupboard is really stiff to open. It has like 3 bolts and a lock. Finally get it open and go in. What the hell? There's a bunch of drawings everywhere, mostly just scribbles on paper with crayons in the center of the room. There's a plate and a plastic knife and fork on the floor, with some half-eaten food on. It looks fresh. It was also one of our promos that's only been out for 3 weeks before that. We locked that door back up again and put a chair in front of it. None of us have gone up to that floor since. I still don't know how that happened. That door obviously hadn't been opened recently. There's a bunch of other spooky things that happen in our store. I'm at least 99% sure it's haunted.
Don't have a job, but I have to walk dogs. Always walking dogs late because video games. I waited very late one night, about 3:40 a.m. to walk my dogs. Usually my dogs go crazy when I get the leashes, but tonight they were really mellow. Weird step outside and it's dead silent, no cars, people, or anything. Something feels off, but I just begin my normal routine of walking them down the block. Close to the end of a corner, when this older woman walks quickly out from the corner. Dogs stare intensely, as well as me. Chills and knives running down my spine, but remember I have a pit so she could destroy this old lady if she was a threat. Lady crosses and walks away in the opposite direction, frequently turning around to check if she was trying to pull something when I see something about a block and a half up from my apartment. Some random guy wearing a yellow raincoat in perfect weather walking quickly down the block. I notice him and start walking fast to my doorstep. He's practically blazing down the block now when he crosses the street over to the block my apartment is on, inches away from my stoop as I quickly unlock the door and run inside my apartment. Catch my breath and go upstairs. See the man walking down the block slowly now. Never walk my dogs that late again.
Not spooky, but whatever. Work at a department store. Do e-commerce. Every sale and cosmetic gift with purchase event, a customer named Bernice Richter orders something to have it sent to home. Lives on a street named Richter Court, so she is probably wealthy. Every once in a while we close at 11 for some sales, despite it being dead since the mall we're in closes at 9. Since it's slow, I have pretty much the entire plus size and mature section to myself. By 9:30, there's no customers as usual. Suddenly an older lady and her even older mother come to my area. The younger one has an obvious wig and drawn-on eyebrows and lips, and basically sounds and acts like an old Hollywood glamour actress. Her mum is tiny and has a fancy feather hat but barely moved or talked. For 2 hours the daughter is trying on dresses and arguing with her mum. It's 11:15 and I call a manager to tell them they're still here. They tell me to ring them up because they're the best customers, and they only ever shop this. Eventually they buy around $800 worth stuff. Find out they're the Richters. Anyone familiar with Grey Gardens? It's about a pair of mother and daughter socialites who live in their own delusional grandiosity in a rundown estate. They're basically just like that, and it's really unsettling, but they're nice. They come around pretty often.
I was a patrol sergeant on the night shift, with a squad of 4 officers. The night had been uneventful until approximately 3 a.m. Myself and an officer I will identify as John responded to an alarm at a business located in an exclusive shopping area known as Gilman Village. It is made up of older homes and buildings that were moved into an area near Issaquah Creek, connected by a wooden walkway. Gilman Village is a very popular shopping destination for tourists and locals alike. As a police officer, I enjoyed walking through the complex while working night shift for the exercise and to window shop at the many interesting stores. Receiving alarms at the different businesses throughout Gilman was common, and most of the time uneventful. But on this particular night, there was nothing common or uneventful about it. John and I responded to the alarm at a business which was then called the Levi Coat Factory. We performed an outer perimeter check of the building and found it to be secure. Dispatch made phone contact with the owner, who declined to respond to allow us to check the interior of the building. John and I returned to the parking lot located on the northwest side of the complex. This is the area where we had parked our patrol units. John and I stood outside and carried on a conversation in the dimly lit parking lot, approximately 60 to 70 feet away from the buildings in that portion of the village. The buildings were to my left and to John's right. Both of us noticed an unusual movement near the eaves of one of the buildings. It was a ball of light about the size of a cantaloupe, moving slowly from left to right, following the area just below the eaves. The light was very intense. We stared at the light until it disappeared around the south side of the building. Goosebumps prevailed. Officer John and I looked at each other, eyes wide open, each asking at the same time, "Did you see that?" What we had seen was strange enough, but nothing compared to what we were about to witness. While we stood and talked about the strange event, our eyes were once again drawn to the northwest corner of the same building, only this time it was the lower corner. A perfect ball of very intense light, approximately 1 foot off the ground, floated around the corner. The ball was about 4 feet in diameter, and once again, a perfect sphere. The thing that made me speechless was what I had seen inside the sphere. Walking upright was, for the lack of any other word, a creature walking. The arms swung back and forth, and the hands were turned with its fingers pointed to the rear. As the sphere progressed along the side of the building, it went behind bushes that grew in between the sphere and the parking lot. The light was visible through the openings of the bush, and it was very clear that it was not being projected. As I recall, at least a full 3 minutes passed before either John or I could speak. To put it lightly, we were terrorized by the unknown. This event changed the way I think and look at stories by others, claiming encounters with the unknown. John and I never spoke about the event until 2010.
I can actually contribute to a thread for once. This is neat. B19. I just started working in the elevator business as a mechanic's apprentice. Be cleaning the top of the car while my mechanic hangs out in the pit, not paying attention, and let my foot hang over the divider bar separating the two cars. Continue to clean when I hear someone yell, "Watch your foot, kid, what are you doing?" I quickly pull my foot back over just in time to avoid it getting crushed by the other car. This really shakes me up, so I yell down to my mechanic thanking him for saving my leg. He asks me what I'm talking about, and that's when it hits me. The voice I heard had an Irish brogue. We're both New Yorkers. Quietly shit bricks and finish cleaning the top of the car. Fast forward a few hours. Finally, time to leave. I'm gathering my mechanic's tools while he's already waiting outside in the work truck. Before I leave, I thank whoever it was that saved my leg and most likely my life. I felt a calming presence, as if I could tell my gratitude was appreciated, and left with my head down, thankful but embarrassed. Yay, so basically a ghost or whatever you'd call it, saved my leg and career. I never did figure out who it was, and I haven't been back to that job site since. Not really a night shift, but it happened, and it fits the thread.
Not a shift story too, but something that genuinely creeped me out when I was younger. 9 years ago. Be me, 14. A part of a platoon for the firefighters cadets. Kinda like scouts but more fireman-y, that organised a weekend camp at school. Friday night, instructors woke us up at 3 a.m, telling everyone to get into formation at the school's assembly space. It's a big, open area surrounded by the building 3 floors up, apart from the entrance. Everyone was in formation, apart from 3 guys who weren't in the camp, so teachers and instructors went to look for them. In the meantime, because all of us failed to snitch or give information on where they were, we were made to get into a push-up position, but to never go down. I looked up to the 2nd floor of the school and saw a silhouette of a person walking along the corridor. It was clear because there were streetlights on the other side of the building, and it passed through the window. I turned to my buddy beside me, who was also looking at the same thing, and all he did was shake his head and signaled for me to just be quiet. The thing is, all the access to the upper floors were locked after school, so the whole weekend there, nobody could actually go up. My buddy and I both knew what we saw, but didn't talk about it then because we didn't want to freak each other out. They found them smoking near the school gate. Same school, different camp session. 16 at the time, commando of the platoon. Was told to wake up at 4 a.m. to meet with the instructors at the canteen. Got dressed and was tying up the laces on my boots. When I got up, I saw at the back of my eye a white figure, almost as if it's wearing a blanket with long hair, kinda just hovering along the other tents. Figured it must be one of the other cadets, until it started to walk away from the campsite towards the corner of the school. When I got to the canteen and told my instructor about it, he did the same thing my friend did. He just shook his head and told me to ignore it. The next day, 2 girls experienced hysteria when they went to the school bathroom at dusk. Shook the camp up a little bit, but it was no biggie. They were sent home after that. Camp ends on Sunday. Asked the instructor what the deal is with all these creepy things. He said something along the lines of, "These things are always around us. It's only when we loudly acknowledge them, that's when they bother us." Also pre-warned me about the upcoming camp in the forest to never ever shine my flashlight up into the canopy, to not piss anywhere I want in the jungle, and if I smell something fragrant like jasmine or something, don't say it out loud. just keep walking. Forest camp was all right, nothing spooky happened. But one of the girls from the previous camp transferred schools the week after the camp, and my platoon won the state championships, so that's kind of cool, I guess.
Not so spooky, but I got 3 gory lulzy ones from working at the roughest 7-Eleven in Winnipeg. Noticed some weird skinhead-looking guy loitering around inside for a bit, thinking he's waiting for a cab. Failed to notice pissed-off hobo glaring from across the parking lot. Later in back, I'm cooking the chicken and deep-frying the taquitos because our location was awesome like that. English second-language Vietnamese lady comes rushing in back in a panic, so excited she can't get a proper sentence out. Run to the front to see skinhead and hobo beating the ass out of each other. Somehow they got behind the counter. We both hit the panic button at the same time, so we had 5 cop cars in 20 seconds. Had to mop a lot of blood for that one. Behind the counter doing cash shit, a big native dude wearing a comically huge blue cowboy hat comes in the doors, asks where such and such street is, look up and he's gushing blood like a fire hydrant from his face. Ask if he needs help, says he's okay, and then heads in the direction opposite of the street he asked about. Had even more blood than the first story to mop up. And the final short but an actual chunk of gore in this one. Get into work. Another night person isn't in and the afternoon person is working later. Ask what happened. Another night shift person didn't follow proper safety procedures while cleaning the potato wedge cutter and lost a finger. Had to be taken to the hospital. Such and such will be coming in an hour, etc. Back to work. Get into the back. Look at Wedger, and the finger is still stuck between the blades, one of the blades cutting halfway through the stub, not cleaning that .jpeg. The manager is fine with this given my track record of having to use the purple stuff.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.